This is the Thriving Dentist Show with Gary Takis, where we help you develop your ideal dental practice, one that provides personal, professional, and financial satisfaction.
Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Dentist Show. I'm Gary Takis, your podcast co-host. The title of today's episode is 5 Specific Recommendations to Finish 2023 Strong. I think you're really going to love this episode. I'm going to give you 5 things that you can do to make sure that you finish this year as strong as you possibly can. Before we get to that episode, 2 quick announcements to make. The first announcement is we have our next masterclass coming up. The next masterclass is titled Mastering Dental Marketing in 2023 and Beyond. And that is on August 23rd. It's one evening, 3 hours. Masterclass is a 3-hour course where I'm able to take a topic and go into depth about that topic. And of course, the topic on that masterclass is all about how to master dental marketing. If you'd like to attract more new patients, perhaps you'd like to attract more of the type of new patients that you'd like to see, then that masterclass is for you. I cover it in a workshop format. It's also loaded with brand new content because marketing is a dynamic field, and we have lots of new content that relates to changes that are happening in the marketing landscape. Come join us. It's less than $90 tuition. You'll get 3 hours of CE credits. You can go to thrivingdentist.com/masterclass and register for that masterclass coming up on August 23rd. The second announcement that I have is we have a returning guest. His name is Dr. Jared Williams. He is a third molar expert. And he is going to share with you 3 tips that he wish he knew before starting his clinical career. You know, I really enjoy having Jared on the podcast as a top clinical expert contributor. He's very articulate, he's very thoughtful, and he provides information that you can use right away. By the way, if you'd like to learn more about Jared, I'd invite you to go visit his website. His website is Jared, JAREDWDDS.com. Lots of useful information on that website. Well, with no further ado, here are 3 tips that Jared wished he knew before he started his clinical practice.
Hey, Thriving Docs. My name is Dr. Jared Williams. I'm your third molar expert. Have you ever been in a scenario where you are stuck with that lower third molar and you're really trying to get it out, but you can't, and your practice time is exploding and your schedule's rocked and ruined? Well, be at peace. I want to share with you 3 tips I wish I would have learned when I would have started my clinical practice. Number 1 is this. Man, I wish I knew this. The DISC assessment. Now, a lot of you all have probably already heard of the DISC assessment. Most of you have already taken the DISC assessment, but a lot of you all probably haven't been able to understand the DISC assessment. Now, the DISC assessment has revolutionized the way in which I practice simply because it allowed me to understand what my strengths and my weaknesses are. But it just didn't stop there. It allowed me to also see the strengths and the weaknesses of my staff. So when I hire or fire individuals, they know why they have found themselves in that predicament, and I can also determine exactly where my growth is because I have the right people in the right spot doing the right thing for the patients that are the lifeblood of our practice. So the DISC assessment has been a wonderful resource in growing my practice. Number 2 is this. I wish I would have just focused on doing third molar surgery so much sooner. When I got started in my clinical practice, I learned everything from mentors that were the best of the best in their practice. One thing that I wish I would have done sooner is dropped root canals. Now, when I was doing root canals, I would go from office to office doing certain procedures such as third molars, IV sedation, and root canals and implants. And as I was doing these procedures, I would have a tremendous amount of success. But when I would do specific procedures, I just felt that I was wasting a lot more time because I was thinking way more, even though I was getting great results. It just wore me down. And so I wish I would have just focused on just a few procedures. This way I could focus in and really become an expert on that one task. And I find that for GPs that are just starting off, or GPs who have been practicing for some time, they would do themselves a world of service if they were just focusing on a couple of procedures that they offer to their patients, because what would happen is they would provide a better service, a better experience, and they end up making more money. That money part is going to take me into tip number 3. Tip number 3 is this. I wish I would have learned that you don't have to work 5 to even 6 days a week in order to make a great living. When I first started out, there was a doctor here in Katy, Texas, right off I-10. And I went inside his practice one day, and he was doing a whole host of general dentist procedures, but he also focused on the specialty side, like subperiosteal implants. Now, if you don't know anything about that, that gives you an idea of how wealth of information I could be. But when he was doing these implants, he would tell me, hey, doc, my practice is 4 days a week. And I laughed at him. Now, he was an older gentleman, roughly about 65, 70. And me coming in just practicing for only 5 years, I laughed because I was like, surely that couldn't be. Well, after humbling myself and listening to what he had to say, I started applying that to my practice. Now, at the time, I was working 5 days and I wanted to make a little bit more extra cash. Well, I started working 6 days, and I would literally be doing procedures, looking at sports, doing procedures, looking at sports, because I was working on the weekends. Well, what happened was I found myself being burnt out, tired, and my procedures took a hit. Well, one thing I decided to do is listen to that older doctor and start applying his principles to the way in which I practice. Ever since then, I work 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, because when you do high ticket procedures such as third molar surgery, you don't have to be in your practice 5 and 6 days a week, 8 to 10 hour days. All right, guys, that's my 3 tips on the things that I wish I would have learned when I first got started in my clinical practice. All right, guys, once again, don't just be a regular dentist, be a thriving dentist. All right, guys, I'm Dr. Jared Williams. Make it a great one.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Thriving Dentist Coaching and Action segment. This is Naren, your co-host. First, I want to take a minute to thank Jared for that wonderful tip. Jared, you are very articulate. We appreciate what you're doing to help the Thriving Dentist community, and I totally enjoyed the 3 tips you shared. We're going to put a link to that video clip as well on the notes page for this particular episode. So go find the episode and watch Jared's video. Let's jump into today's topic: 5 specific recommendations to finish 2023 strong. 5 specific recommendations to finish 2023 strong. Most of us who are students of learning how to be more successful tomorrow or the next year than we are today realize that a lot of that starts with intention. It starts with you taking specific actions. So yes, you still have, almost half the year still left by the time you're listening to this podcast. So today, Gary is going to share, based on all his years of experience, specific things you can do between now and the end of the year to finish strong, to make 2023 still a good year for you, and perhaps your best year yet. So Gary, please take it away.
Yeah, and Aaron, we thought that doing an episode around the middle of the year, by the time this one is published, it'll be published in early August. But we still have, by the time this is published, you'll have about 5 months left in the year. And you're absolutely right that thriving practices have a common denominator. And one of the common denominators is they're very intentional practices. They're very intentional, not just flapping in the breeze, and having things happen. Thriving dentists make things happen in their practice. And I am driven by the concept of simply being better tomorrow than I am today. The The genesis of this episode kind of crossed my mind this morning when I went on my morning run. I did an 8-mile run this morning. And as I was stretching and I was thinking about what kind of run I was going to do, there's all kinds of different training runs that are in my repertoire for training. And I started thinking, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do today? And I decided that I was going to do a reverse split. And there in a reverse split, I did 8 miles today. It means that the last 4 miles were quicker than the first 4 miles. And any of you that are runners know that that's not easy to do because you tend to fade a little bit, as you go through your run. But when you're doing a reverse split, you want to make sure your last half is faster than your first half. Well, I started thinking about that. And I started thinking, well, likewise, Thriving Dentists would like to make sure their last half of the year is even better than their first half of the year. And that was the genesis of this topic for our podcast episode today. So with that introduction, let me talk about 5 specific recommendations you can use to finish 2023 strong. And the first one, some of these recommendations are very tactical, very granular. Some of them are more big picture, but I'm going to start with one that's very granular. Recommendation number 1, set up a scheduling template where you can see new patients in your schedule within 1 week of their phone call. Now, Naren, right there, I know there's going to be a lot of listeners that are immediately going to their calendar, looking to see how far they're booked out. And they might be surprised. And doctor, if you haven't done that, let me encourage you to look at your calendar and look at when your first available new patient appointment is. If it's more than a week in the future, then you are shooting yourself in the foot when it comes to welcoming new patients into your practice. And the reason for that is in 2023, people are more impatient than ever. Naren, would you agree with me on that?
Yes, and that trend is only getting worse. Impatience.
Our attention span is actually shortening, as a human being, rather than we're becoming more patient. And so when someone's looking for a dentist and you're presenting a new patient appointment that is more than a week out, if they found you the way most people find a dentist today is via a Google search, if they find you by a Google search, and let's say that new patient appointment, the first available one is 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, it's likely that that patient is simply going to hang up and go to the next dentist in their Google search. And if that's happening to you, then what you'll discover is that your marketing is actually working. And when I say that, it means you got the phone to ring.
Yes.
But your systems failed because you weren't able to accommodate that patient within a relatively short period of time. And remember, I'm not talking about an emergency visit here. I'm talking about a patient that maybe just moved to town. They're looking to establish themselves with a dentist. Nothing's going on in their mouth, but they're looking to establish themselves. By the way, if you suggest an appointment within a week and the patient says, well, right now I'm involved in a big project at work, I was kind of thinking a little bit farther down the road, that's fine. That's fine.
Right.
Push them out.
That's patient's choice, right? Yeah.
That's their choice, but we gave them an option. But if your first new patient appointment is that far out, then you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And the best way to do that is set up a block system of new patients where you put in a certain number of new patient blocks each week in your schedule. Now, every practice will have a different number of blocks depending on what their new patient flow is. But you want to block those appointments for new patients. You want to put those first in your schedule. So you could go out, a good exercise to do would be to put those new patient blocks in for the rest of 2023. And while you're at it, Naren, go ahead and put them for 2024. Mm-hmm. Put those blocks in your schedule. And the goal is to release those blocks. If you can't schedule it with a new patient, then you release it with a 48-hour notice. So meaning we release it 2 days ahead, and then we can put the most productive thing we can put in there. So we're not going to be sitting around with open time. But now you're going to be setting yourself up for success by using a block system for your new patient appointments. Now, it might take you a little bit of a while to fine tune that and to get that fully dialed in your practice, but no better time than the present to start dialing that in. So recommendation number 1, set up a scheduling template to see new patients within a week. You're literally rolling the red carpet out and letting patients know we love to see new patients. And you're backing that up with the behavior of being able to schedule them relatively soon. All right, recommendation number 2. For the last part of this year, I want you to choose a specific treatment area in your practice to promote. Choose something that you'd like to do more of. Maybe that's adult orthodontics. Maybe it's cosmetic dentistry. Maybe you're a follower of Jared Williams and you're choosing to do more third molar removal. Find something that it is that you want to promote and focus on promoting that in the last part of this year. You can do that internally and you can do it externally. Now, if you want to do it externally, the best way to do that is to master digital marketing with keywords and key phrases by promoting that area. Let's say you want to do more Invisalign or adult orthodontics, to use a broader title, broader definition. Then you can make sure that all the keywords and key phrases that are used in your community when someone's looking for an office that provides adult orthodontics, that you are mastering keywords and key phrases. And that way you'll be attracting people that are looking for those services. Now, if you want to promote something more internally in your practice, like, again, let's stick on the topic of adult orthodontics. One of the things that we can do more Invisalign or aligners in your practice is to have your hygienist during the hygiene appointment look for one of 2 conditions with the patient: crowding or spaces, crowding or spaces. And if we see someone that has one of those conditions, let's say it's crowding, we could have the hygienist say to the patient, Naren, if there was a way to correct the crowding in your teeth without brackets or braces, would you have any interest in that? And guess what most people say when it's presented that way by their hygienist?
Of course.
Yes, I'm really not happy with that crowding. I didn't want to look like I'm back in middle school, with braces. But yes, I'd like to correct that. And then the hygienist can say, well, when doctor comes in to do her exam today, with your permission, I'll ask her to take a look and see if you're a candidate for Invisalign. You might have heard about Invisalign. Invisalign is state-of-the-art adult orthodontics that allows us to move teeth without brackets or braces. Let's see if you're a candidate. And that's a great way to promote something and really kind of tune into that in your practice. And the beauty of it is how simple it is. All your hygienist is looking for is 2 conditions: crowding or spaces, crowding or spaces. So that's recommendation number 2. Choose a specific treatment area to promote in your practice, to focus on, to identify, to manifest, if you will. Recommendation number 3, select one patient each day at the end of your morning huddle by answering this question. Of all the people on our schedule today, whose life are we going to change today? And I want you, doctor, and all of your team members to look at the schedule and intentionally choose a patient to recognize. It might be something we're doing clinically. Maybe we're seating a beautiful 10-unit smile design today. It could be something behavioral. Maybe we know someone that has experienced some hardship in their life, and we're going to provide some extra empathy and support to that patient. Maybe it's going to be someone we're going to celebrate. Maybe we have a patient that we know that coming up is their 25th wedding anniversary, and we're going to choose that to really focus and celebrate with that patient. But I want you to be very intentional about choosing a specific patient on your schedule that you're going to change their life today. Now, Naren, think about that. If we had 6 months left, the typical dental practice works about 200 days a year, about 200 days a year. And if we're halfway through the year, how many days does that leave in the second half of the year? About 100 days.
Yes.
And imagine if we did that, and imagine how different your practice would be at the end of the year when we focused on 100 specific patients and made an intentional effort to change their life. Would that strengthen and enhance your practice?
Absolutely. 100%.
Beyond a shadow of the doubt. And by the way, that would be a habit that would be wonderful to carry over into 2024 as well.
I think it also reinvigorates your team, right? Because it's something that they look forward to because they are making a difference in a real person's life every single day.
Dentistry is a people game. The more you can connect with your patients, the stronger your practice is. And this is a way to connect very specifically and intentionally. And it's a great habit to develop in your practice. All right, recommendation number 4, focus on Google reviews. Focus on Google reviews. I want you to become the practice in your community with the most Google reviews. And here's how to do that. I'm going to walk through that right now. Here's how to do that. Have one of your team members show up to the morning huddle with the email addresses of everybody on your schedule today, whether it be on the doctor's side or hygiene side. Step 2, have that person highlight everybody's email address that has a Gmail address who's on your schedule today, because they have to have a Gmail address in order to write a Google review. Step 3, as a team in the morning huddle, identify those highlighted email addresses that have Gmail addresses and decide, who do we know that beyond a shadow of the doubt would write a 5-star Google review for us? Maybe there's 5 people on your schedule today that have a Gmail address that we know, and maybe out of those 5, 4 of them we flat out know would write a 5-star Google review. If we're not sure, then let's not ask them. And then the next step is to identify who's going to ask each one of those patients. Let's say there's 4 patients. Who's going to ask Gary? Who's going to ask Naren? Who's going to ask Maria? Who's going to ask Sylvia? And it usually comes up organically. Maybe the hygienist will say, hey, Gary and I are very close. I'll ask Gary. Maybe it's an administrative team member that has a connection with the patient. And step 5 is print out a very simple instruction sheet that your team member can hand to the patient and say, Gary, I sure love seeing you on my schedule. When I see you on my schedule, I know I'm going to have a good day. But we also love seeing new patients here. Would you be kind enough to write us a Google review when you get a chance? That'll help more patients identify us as a potential dental practice for them. Hey, I went ahead and printed this little cheat sheet for you, and I hand them that little card. The card's about a 5x8 card, and we hand them that instruction sheet. Now, one of the reasons we give them the instruction sheet is typically they'll put that instruction sheet in their purse or wallet. And later in the day, when they find that instruction sheet, they'll be reminded to write you a Google review. And there's how you can absolutely master Google reviews. By the way, how much did this cost in our marketing budget, Naren?
0.
Altogether. 0.
Yes.
But that's how we at Life Smiles have over 1,070 5-star Google reviews by using that system I just described to you. And finally, the 5th recommendation is very tactical here. Doctor, I want you to do a weekly scheduling review meeting with your doctor scheduling coordinator. A weekly schedule review meeting. So at the end of the week, this is a 10-minute meeting. That's it. I want you to sit down with your doctor scheduling coordinator and review each day. Let's say you work Monday through Thursday, then have a printed copy of the schedule for Monday, for Tuesday, for Wednesday, for Thursday. And I want you to review with your scheduling coordinator what worked well on Monday, what didn't work well, what do we need less time for? What did I need more time for? And constantly look at that on a weekly basis. Do that for now till the end of the year. So if there's 26 weeks left in the year, you're going to have 26 scheduling coordinator meetings with your scheduling coordinator to review and fine tune how you're scheduling. And that'll keep a flow of information going to your scheduling coordinator, who will now know how to schedule differently moving forward. You've heard that Einstein quote, Naren. What's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different result. If your scheduling coordinator schedules the same way she has always scheduled, what are the chances of getting a different result?
0.
0. You're insane by doing that. Well, I know none of you are insane. So let's break that habit, and let's also use that as kind of a jumping off point to talk about continuous improvement. And by you spending that time with your scheduling coordinator, you're going to let that scheduling coordinator know, here's what worked in the schedule. Here's what didn't work. Here's where I needed more time. Here's where I needed less time. Here's where I had room on a side column to schedule something. Here's where it was a disaster putting something in the side column. And all of that information is going to allow your scheduling coordinator to be more effective. Well, there's 5 specific recommendations to finish the year 2023 as strong as possible. Let me recap real quickly. Recommendation number 1, set up a scheduling template to see new patients within a week. Number 2, choose a specific treatment area in your practice to promote, internally and externally. Number 3, select one patient each day where you answer the question, whose life are we going to change today? It's all about intentionality there. Recommendation number 4, focus on Google reviews like you've never done before and watch what happens. Number 5, do a specific schedule review meeting each week with your scheduling coordinator to identify what's working in your schedule, what isn't working, and what can be improved in real time. Close to real time. Well, there's 5 specific recommendations. I want to encourage you to apply these in your practice. And here's to finishing 2023 in a reverse split that's even stronger than the first 6 months of this year. Well, I know we have some questions coming up there, and we'll go a little bit deeper when we get into the Thriving Dentist Q&A segment.
Welcome back to the Thriving Dentist Q&A segment. Gary, I thoroughly enjoyed that segment, the coaching and action segment. And specifically, your tip around, how do we change a patient's life today? I thought that really centered this whole episode, because it's really the reason why many of you got into dentistry and many of your team members got into dentistry, which is to change people's lives. So thank you for that awesome strategy, Gary. I do have some questions. I have 4 questions. So let me start with the very first one I have for you. We are booked way too far in advance for new patients. I looked today and discovered that we cannot even get a new patient in for at least 4 weeks. Where do I even begin to change this?
Well, doctor, you've actually taken the first step, and the first step is awareness. You're now aware of the fact that you've got a problem, with your new patient scheduling. That reminds me, recently a client came to me and said, is a new client, and he said, Gary, I need more new patients, and I want to master digital marketing, but I think I want to also spend some money on paid ads. And I had already looked at his schedule, and I discovered that he was booked out 5 weeks in advance for new patients. And I knew that he doesn't typically have the awareness of that. So I said, Doctor, do you have any idea how far out you're booked in terms of new patients? He said, no, I usually don't pay attention to that. Let me take a look. And he discovered that he was 5 weeks out. And he said, oh my gosh, Gary, I just discovered I'm booked 5 weeks out. I don't need to spend more money on Google paid ads, do I? I need to figure out how to get new patients in sooner. So that client discovered there for himself, he was in the process of discovering what the problem is. Well, doctor, you've discovered that's the situation in your practice. So you've already made the first step. Now let's get to the tactical part. How do you change that? Well, I'm going to recommend that you go out 4 weeks. You said you were 4 weeks out, and start putting new patient blocks into your schedule. I'm not going to recommend that you turn your schedule upside down for the next 4 weeks. That wouldn't be the right thing to do in your practice. It wouldn't be the right thing to do for patients. But go out in 4 weeks beyond and start putting those new patient blocks. Now that's step 1. And decide what is the appropriate new patient flow for you. Is it 1 new patient a day? Is it 2? Is it 3? It depends on your practice. And then build the schedule intentionally by putting those new patient blocks into your schedule first. And while you're at it, doctor, put those in for all of 2024. What a great way to build that habit. Now, one of the things that you can do in the meantime is have your scheduling coordinator take a look at patients that are in your schedule that may have been a little bit spotty in terms of their attendance in your practice, and shake some of those appointments loose by contacting them ahead of time. We can do it by phone. We can do it by text message. We can do it by email. And we might say something like this in a message. Hey, Naren, we have you scheduled a couple weeks from now, but I know sometimes your schedule can be a bit of a challenge. And I wanted to double check with you and make sure that appointment is going to work. If it's going to work, fine. That's perfect for you. But if not, maybe we could schedule at a time that's going to work a little bit better for your schedule, because I do have some patients I'm trying to work into the schedule. How do you feel about that appointment? And that way we could open up some appointments, and essentially maybe some appointments that might be sort of setting themselves up for no show or short cancellations, so we can work new patients into the schedule. And that's something you can do right away. So there's 2 steps. Put your blocks in advance, and then start to shake the bushes a little bit between now and 4 weeks out to see if you can open up any appointments to accommodate new patient flow.
Thank you, Gary. That's an awesome response. Appreciate that. Let me ask you question number 2. Before I do that, I do have a quick comment. Sometimes opportunities come disguised as problems, right? And one of the things I notice when somebody's blocked out so far in advance, they are still contracted with certain PPO plans that are where they are not really making, decent profit on first by seeing those patients. So sometimes this might be a sign that it's time to kick the bucket and drop some PPO plans. Anyways,
great suggestion there. And absolutely, demand is one of the most important indicators on whether you can successfully drop PPO plans or not. And if you've got heavy demand, like you're booked 4 weeks out to work in a new patient, then hey, well, let's start looking at some of the most oppressive PPO plans that we're in and kick them to the curb. By the way, if any of our listeners would like more information about that, you can schedule a coaching strategy meeting with me where we can talk about your practice. I get to learn more about your practice. You get to learn more about our coaching and determine if maybe you're on the right, maybe it's the right time to successfully resign from PPO plans. By the way, that Zoom meeting would be with me. You can go to www.thrivingdentist.com/CSM. That stands for Coaching Strategy Meeting. Love the opportunity to meet you on Zoom and talk about those circumstances that maybe will allow you to successfully kick some of those PPO plans to the curb.
Absolutely. And I see this a lot. Once marketing starts kicking in and you're booked further and further in advance, they have a call with Gary because they're like, okay, you know what? I have the confidence now to kick these, PPO plans that have really taken advantage of me for so many years. So thank you for that, Gary. Let me ask you question number 2. I like to promote more cosmetic dentistry with my existing patients. Any ideas?
Well, sure. One of the things I've noticed with my client base is that a lot of times elective treatment like cosmetic dentistry is a function of timing, For example, maybe someone is interested in having a smile design, but and maybe it's a female patient, but she has 2 kids in college right now, and college tuition is taking a lot of the family budget. So one of the things we can do is we can really be prepared when we come in and do our hygiene exams and take a look and see if there's any cosmetic dentistry that's been part of their treatment plan that remains to be completed. And just do a check-in with that patient. Just do a check-in. Linda, it might sound like this when you come in to do your exam. Hey, Linda, I was reviewing your notes in preparation for your appointment today, and I remember that we've talked to you about doing some cosmetic dentistry to help you have the smile of your dreams. One of the things I thought I'd do today is just check in with you and see what you were thinking about that smile design. And then just listen. And she might say, Gary, as much as I'd love to do that right now, man, those college tuition bills are eating us alive. We have to wait till the kids graduate from college. Or she might say, you know what? As a matter of fact, now is a good time. So do those check-ins with your patients. So check in with them. Another thing that you could do is take some after photos of patients that you've done gorgeous cosmetic dentistry on, and put those after photos up in your office. Put them up in your office. And use those after photos as a way to draw attention to your patients that cosmetic dentistry is something that is part of our menu of services, something that we do in the practice. We all know that saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. One of the best ways that we can do that is we can have examples of people with gorgeous smiles in your practice. And we can say, this is actually a patient in our practice that we've helped have the smile of their dreams. And it's a way to sort of suggestively plant the seed that we can help you with this as well. A third thing that you can do if you're not already doing it is to incorporate digital photography as part of your new patient exam process. We take 6 digital photos on all new patients. We display those photos on a tablet. And once the patient sees what's going on in their mouth, very often they're going to ask you questions about things they can do to improve their smile. There's 3 things that you can do internally with your existing patients to help them create more interest in having the smile of their dreams.
Thank you, Gary. Let me ask you question number 3. We seem to run hot and cold on Google reviews. I would like to see us become more consistent. How can we do so?
You know, in reality, Naren, I think it's an accurate statement that many practices run hot and cold on Google reviews. And I think part of that is human nature. It's the shiny object syndrome. You know, one minute we're focusing on Google reviews, and next minute we're over here focusing on the new scanner that we have.
Right.
And I think it's human nature. The best thing that you can do to be consistent on Google reviews is to assign someone on your team to be your Google review champion. Assign someone on your team. Now, that doesn't mean that that person gets all the Google reviews. No, not at all. All that means is that person is responsible for keeping reviews front and center in your practice. Front and center in your practice. And maybe that person in the morning huddle celebrates in the morning. Hey guys, yesterday we got 3 new Google reviews. Whatever you did yesterday, keep doing it again today. Or maybe it goes the other way. Hey guys, it's been a week since we've gotten a Google review. Let's get back on the horse. Maybe she reads Google reviews when they call out individual team members in the morning huddle. But it's the idea of the responsibility of the Google review champion is keep Google reviews front and center. And doctor, by the way, when this is someone other than you doing this, you now can focus on things that need your attention, and your Google review champion can be responsible and accountable for keeping reviews front and center. And by the way, doctor, you might even consider a modest incentive for that team member for being the Google review champion. And maybe you come up with a simple incentive for that team member so that her agenda is aligned with your agenda in terms of getting more Google reviews. There's the answer there for keeping reviews front and center in your practice.
Let me ask you question number 4. That's the last question I have for you, Gary. I have multiple admin team members and all of them work on the schedule. Would it be better for me to have a dedicated doctor scheduling coordinator?
I'm going to answer that one with one word. Yes, it would be better to have a dedicated doctor scheduling coordinator. When everybody's doing it, Naren, complete that sentence. When everybody's doing it,
nobody's doing it.
Nobody, and I don't mean that cynically.
Right.
Well, there's no accountability. There's no focus. There's no responsibility. But I think you get absolutely benefit by having a dedicated doctor scheduling coordinator. Now, that doesn't mean, like, for example, Life Smiles has 3 full-time admin team members. All 3 can schedule any of the doctors. They can schedule our hygiene. They all can make appointments. However, we have a dedicated Dr. Paul scheduling coordinator, a dedicated Dr. Tim scheduling coordinator, and a dedicated hygiene scheduling coordinator. And those individuals are responsible for that department. And by the way, if you have someone that's responsible, that's where you're going to have your meeting, your scheduling review meeting with that person, because that person you're going to be giving the feedback to. Here's what worked in the schedule. Here's what didn't work. Here's where I need more time. Here's where I needed less time. Here's where I've got room in a side column to work things in. Here's the kind of things we could put in the side column. And that person is going to soak that up like a sponge. So I would highly recommend having a dedicated doctor scheduling coordinator. Watch what will happen when you have someone that you're supporting, you're providing feedback to, and they're having accountability and responsibility for that particular area in your practice. Naren, I always enjoy the Q&A segment, but the ones we got today were especially thoughtful questions and really helped us amplify the topic, which is 5 specific recommendations to finish 2023 strong. Doctors, I hope you treat today's episode kind of like a smorgasbord. We put lots of information out there. Pick the stuff that works for you. Pick the stuff that you think you can improve, and put your head down, and let's do everything we can to finish 2023 as strong as you possibly can. What a great way to go into 2024 by finishing the year very strong. Well, as we wrap up today's episode, some thank yous are in order. Naren, thank you for co-hosting this Thriving Dentist Show podcast. Thank you and your team at Equa for all that you do to not only help Life Smiles, but help practices all over the country master marketing these days. If you haven't already scheduled your marketing strategy meeting, I would strongly encourage you to go to equa.com/MSM. Naren's been kind enough to make a marketing strategy meeting available to any of our listeners at no cost, so that you can learn how you can master the world of digital marketing. The end result of that is going to be that you'll be spending less than you've ever spent on marketing, getting better results than you ever have. Again, equa.com/MSM. I also want to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for submitting questions to us. Also, thank you for your listening loyalty. If you haven't done so already, I have a favor to ask. Click on subscribe to your podcast directory, whatever podcast directory you listen to Thriving Dentist Show. Click subscribe. And that means that every Wednesday when we upload a new episode, it'll be uploaded for your listening convenience. On that note, let me thank you for the privilege of your time today. And here's to you finishing 2023 as strong as possible.